Chapter 46 The Spring. With each passing day, the sun climbed a little higher, and its rays grew a little warmer. The last patches of snow melted away, and color returned to the land. The pasture, the fields, the trees, they all were turning bright green, and the air slowly filled with the fresh smells of spring. Many of the cows had been steadily growing bigger, and now calving season had arrived. When the time was right, each cow went out to the pasture of her calf, would be born in soft grass. The robot stood nearby, just in case anyone needed her help. But nobody ever did. Even the first time mothers knew what to do instinctively, and soon newborn calves were frolicking around the farm. Spring was a happy, exciting time, and yet Ross was distracted. More and more she found herself looking to the skies, hoping to see Brad Bill and his flock. She knew they were on their way. The Dinner, Chapter 47. The Dinner. Mr. Sharif hopped out of the truck with his arms full of shopping bags. He limped toward the farmhouse, dragging his leg in the usual way, and then he fell. Ross ran over and found a man sprawled on the driveway, groceries scattered around him. "Are you okay?" she said, pulling him in his feet. "I'm fine," he grumbled. Ross started picking up the groceries and said, "Let me help you inside." A minute later, the two of them were stepping into the house. Jacket and hats hang from pegs on the wall. Shoes were leaned up beneath the bench. The man peeled off his boots and hollered, "Kids, it's time to cook dinner." Footsteps pounded across the ceiling, and the children came flying down the staircase with their dog. "Is Ross having dinner with us?" said Jaya. "Ross doesn't eat," said Jed. "I know that, but she could sit with us." "How about it, Ross?" said Mr. Sharif. "Care to join us for dinner?" The robot stared at the family. The family smiled at the robot. "What would you like me to do?" said Ross. In a very proper voice, Jed said, "I would greatly enjoy the pleasure of your company for dinner." In a very proper voice, Jaya said, "I order you to stay for dinner." The children didn't wait for a response. They snatched the groceries from Ross and scampered off. Oscar ran after them, barking, "Is that food? It smells like food. I want food." The wooden floor cracked as Ross followed Mr. Sharif through the living room. A comfy chair and a sofa faced the darkened electronic screen. Above the fireplace hung a painting of a familiar old barn. Doorways led to other rooms. Ross glanced into Mr. Sharif's office and saw a portrait of his family, including his wife. Mrs. Sharif was pretty, with dark curly hair and a bright smile. It was the same smile Ross saw on the children. "Look, Jack's crying like a baby," came Jack's giggly voice from the kitchen when Ross walked in. The girl was chopping an onion with the tears streaming down her cheeks. "Ross, I order you to chop this onion for me," said Jaya, wiping his eyes. The robot picked up a knife, and in a flash, the onion was perfectly chopped and dumped into a bowl. Clearly, Ross was designed to chop onions. "Ross, I order you to take the night off." Mr. Sharif laughed. "The kids and I want to cook. We enjoy it." More vegetables were chopped. Scallops started sizzling. Delicious aromas swirled together, and before long, a magnificent meal was set on the dinner table. Oscar positioned himself below. A cat food scraps, and everyone else took a seat. Mr. Sharif turned to his daughter. Would you like to say grace? The girl lowered her head. Thank you, God, for this yummy food we're about to gobble down. Amen. Thank you, Jaya, said Mr. Sharif with a wink. And thank you, Ross, for everything you've done this past year. I had my doubts, but now I can imagine that what we'd do without you. The children looked at each other. Then the family grabbed their knives and forks and dug into dinner. A colorful leaf salad, a plate of sauteed asparagus, creamy mashed potatoes, and buttered bread, and tall glasses of milk. The meal was beautiful, but as Ross scanned the table, her eyes kept returning to the roasted chicken. It was about the size of Bradbill. Suddenly, the robot was full of questions. Do chickens live happy lives? Did this chicken know it would be eaten? Were humans bad for eating animals? No, thought Ross. The humans are simply following their instincts, like all creatures, like Ross herself. At least the sheriff honored his animal by giving thanks, and by turning it into a beautiful, nourishing meal. After he'd finished eating, Mr. Sharif stepped out of the room, and he returned a moment later carrying a violin and a violin and a bow. Growing up, I dreamed of being a musician, he said, dumping back into his chair. He tuned the instrument, put it under his chin, and started to play. His bow glided back and forth. His fingers danced across the strings, and a lovely old folk song filled the room. Mr. Sharif tapped his foot as the notes rang out, soft and then loud, slow and then fast. The song ended with a flourish, and the music faded in silence. Then he rested the violin on his knee. This instrument has been in our family for a very long time, he said, since the days when Kiras Sharif first built a farm. Kiras Sharif. Ross knew that name. She unnapped a pocket on her tool belt and pulled out a small journal. I discovered this in the old barn, she said, handing it over. The children huddled around their father as he looked at the journal. They read our ancestor's name on the cover. Then they carefully opened it and turned the brittle pages. I've never seen this journal before, said Mr. Sharif. It's a piece of our family history. Kids, look at how they used to milk cows. Ross felt the sheriffs like that, examining the journal, learning about their family's history. But what about their family's future? Their lives were difficult. They needed help, and Ross was about to run away forever. And as she marched back to the barn that night, the robot felt something like worry and confusion and guilt. Chapter 48 The Return. The robot's feelings of worry and confusion and gulped went away as soon as she heard her son's voice echoing across the farm. "Ma, we're back!" Bright Bill's flock appeared above the pasture, flapping and honking and laughing. They glided down to Ross, and Bright Bill took his place on his mother's shoulder. "I told you we'd keep your son out of trouble," squeaked Loud Wing. "Thank you, everyone," the robot spoke in her most cheerful voice. "It is so good to see all of you again." The cows trotted over, grinning and happily moving to the geese, while the herd and the flock caught up with each other. Ross and Bright Bill slipped away to speak privately. "What's the plan, Ma?" said Bright Bill. "The plan is simple," said Ross. "Tonight, under the cover of darkness, I will run away from this farm, and then you and I will begin our journey home." The goodbyes. That evening was full of sad goodbyes. The first goodbye was between the flock and their young leader. The other geese wanted to help Ross and Bright Bill get home, but the journey would be dangerous, and Bright Bill refused to put his flock at risk. So he demanded they return to the island without him. The geese could feel their instincts urging them onward, and they knew Ross and Bright Bill would look after each other. So they said their goodbyes and took off into the night sky. The next goodbye was between the robot and the cows. Ross marched into the pasture one last time as the herd gathered around. "I guess this is it," said the robot. "Thank you all for being so kind to me." Annabelle sniffled and said, "I really hate goodbyes, but I'm glad you are going home where you belong. I just wish there was some way I could be helpful." "Actually, there's a thing you can do." Ross unsnapped a pocket of her tool belt and took out the transmitter. You can hold on to this for me. Hopefully it will take a few days for Mr. Sharif to realize I was gone." Annabelle smiled as the robot gently tucked the small device under her collar. Lily and the other calves suddenly swarmed around Ross and nuzzled her legs. They all had tears in their eyes. Tess wanted to lighten the mood, but she couldn't think of anything funny to say. The other cows called out to their friend, "We'll miss you, Ross. Get home safely. Don't forget us." Ross waved to the herd. He said a silent goodbye to all the farm machines parked in the shed. Then she followed the driveway out to the fields, with Bright Bill on her shoulder and the chicken on her side. The last goodbye was the hardest of all. Everyone was quiet as they walked through the silvery moonlight, past rows and rows of sprouting crops, and now to the farthest corner of the farthest field. Ross turned and faced Giles and Jed. She looked past them, back to the distant lights of the farm buildings. "I have prepared a farm at the departure," said Ross. "It will take care of itself for a while, but not forever. We can manage things, at least until we get another robot," said Jed. "This place wouldn't be the same without you, but we'll be okay." What will you tell your father?" said Ross. That's for us to worry about," said Jaya. "You must worry about getting home." Ross glanced down to the tool belt strapping across her chest. "Would you like this back?" No, we would not," said Jed. "It was a gift just for you," said Jaya. The girl pulled her brother and her robot into a big, tight hug. Beneath the sounds of the crickets were the sounds of the children crying. "How will we know you've made it home?" said Jed. "We need to know how your story ends," said Jaya. The robot muttered some animal words to her son, and then said to the children, "If a goose ever visits this farm and present you with a feather, you will know when I am home. You will know that I am home." The children smiled through their tears and waited for their friends to leave. But the robot didn't move. For more than anything, Ross wanted to go home, and yet she was conflicted. She cared about this family and this farm, and now she was abandoning them. The robot lurched forward, then backward, again and again, as her computer brain struggled with all of these thoughts and feelings. Finally, the children gave her the gentle push she needed. "Ross, we order you to run away." And the robot did as she was told. Chapter 50: The Free Robot. At long last, Ross was free, but as she ran away from Hilltop Farm, she didn't feel free. She felt something more like fear. She feared being seen and captured and destroyed. She feared for her son's safety. So Ross camouflaged herself. She avoided the fields and kept to the trees. And with Barbie at her guard, she carefully crept north through farm country. The wild robot's long journey home had begun.